This is something that JY kind of is said to me, and I agree. There is some element of just general knowledge that this is testing you for, right?
Welcome, folks, back to the 7Sage podcast. I'm ZeSean, that's Henry. Today, we've got a fun episode. It's some common LSAT myths. These are things that people out in the world will tell you about the LSAT that sound kind of true. Maybe it sounds like common knowledge, but they're actually not true. They're totally myths, and Henry and I are going to bust these myths today.
Wow.
Henry, do you want to get us started on myth number one?
Smashing myths. Yeah, for sure. I guess the first myth we could talk about here is timeline and how long it will take to get your score. And this kind of cuts both ways. I guess we could begin. I mean, I think there is a sentiment, more or less, that like 3 months is a pretty good amount of time to study for the LSAT, and that might be all you need for it. And I would just caution against that. I feel like studying can take a while. Like 3 months, I don't know. How long did you study for the LSAT, ZeSean?
Well, I don't want to. I want to maybe preface this by saying I took many months off in between and like took a lot of breaks and didn't start studying in the most efficient way. So my whole process was like 2 years. But that was a lot of on and off. Yeah, I think I could have condensed all of that into 6 months if I was very focused from the start, studied the right way, and didn't take like several months off between takes. But it was like a journey for me. I think I jogged the LSAT rather than like sprinted it. If I had sprinted it, I still think 2 months would not have been enough. I think maybe 6 for me.
Yeah, I think, we're going to get into another myth. I honestly feel like jogging it is, in some ways, almost an ideal way to do it. Just in terms of, it's like probably the equivalent, jogging over a long period of time is probably equivalent in effort over sprinting over a short period of time. But I feel like jogging ends up maybe giving slightly better results. But yeah, I mean, if you did 6 months, that's kind of about what I studied, or how long I took to study. It was around 6 months. Not all of those months were really hardcore. Some of them were a little bit more structured. Nothing was too crazy. But I do feel like for most people, at least the most people I see, it does take a little bit longer than 3 months to achieve their goal score. I think the average time on 7Sage is about 6 months long.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I was going to say, like, jogging, if you have the time, like, if you're someone watching this who is a junior in undergrad, or you want to take a few gap years in between undergrad and law school, which I, maybe also recommend just in terms of some, life experience, and that I did that and I did not regret those years in between. If you want to just kind of start learning a little bit of LSAT each day in a high quality fashion and not sprint the test, and I think jogging it and learning a little bit over a long period of time will really cement the concepts. Like, I feel like I'll have the stuff in my brain forever just because I learned it so slowly. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, this actually plays into myth 3, and so maybe we could just bring in myth 3 and talk about both at the same time, which is this idea that you have to study for X amount of hours per day.
Yeah, I see this all the time. I have to study 8 hours a day. Like, I have, I have summer off, or I'm unemployed, and I'm studying 9 to 5, 8 hours a day. Like,
yeah, it's definitely. I mean, you can do that, but have to is a very strong word, right? So, I think it's going to depend on how much time or you've allotted for yourself between now and when your tests are going to be. And so sometimes you might, I don't want to say have to study. It might behoove you to study a little bit more per day than another person. But in an ideal world, I would say, hey, look, if you give yourself a 6-month horizon, you can study maybe an hour, hour and a half a day, maybe take a day off. And honestly, I think there's a lot of benefits to broadening your horizon and doing a little bit less, mostly because this is a test of habits. We're trying to retool the way we think, not just, learn some quick tricks or try to memorize things. And that happens over time, right? It's easier to build up a habit. I don't want to say it's easier to build up a habit, but like, how do you build a habit? You build it up over, one day at a time, over a longer period of time, instead of just, doing 5 hours a day of, I don't know, what's a habit to build? Brushing your teeth. If you're a kid, you want to brush your teeth every day.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. You don't tell them to brush their teeth 5 times a day and then hope it sticks, right? You get them to brush your teeth twice a day over many months.
I think that's such a good point, Henry. I mean, I think building habits is more important. I think I think it was Terry Crews who said this one time, who said,
Mm,
the gym every single day. It does not matter if you lift weights or run on the treadmill or whatever. It doesn't matter if you exercise. Bring a book, do whatever. Just make sure you get there every single day, because the routine of having the gym in your life is way more important than what you do at the gym. And eventually you'll work out. Eventually you'll work out. But just setting aside the time is more important. Sacrificing that little chunk of your day is more important long term. The other thing I hear you saying, I think that's very wise, is quality over quantity, right?
yes.
I think if all you've got is 10 minutes, right? On your commute to work or whatever, you're super tired after work or school, and you really don't have the energy. If you've got 10 minutes, do one LR question, thorough blind review, thorough wrong answer journal. That'll take up 10 minutes. If you've got an hour, do more questions. If you've got 2 hours, do more. But just doing one question with thorough blind review, thorough wrong answer journal, even that will keep your brain activated and it'll keep you learning. So there's an LSAT. Maybe the lesson here is there is an LSAT study plan that works for every schedule.
Yes. Yeah. But all of them probably should emphasize quality, as you say, right? Where 10 minutes a day is way better. If all you have for high quality study is that 10 minutes, that's great. Do the 10 minutes of studying. If you could do an hour on the same day, but no individual minute will be that high quality, you're not really paying attention to it. You're not all in, you're tired, X, Y, and Z. It's hard to get through an hour. You do a long day at work. It's hard to tell yourself, I'm going to study it for an hour. So I kind of like passively study for an hour. That's honestly probably a waste of your time. I don't want to say it's not a waste of your time, please. It's not a waste of your time, but it's not maybe not the most efficient use of your time and effort, as opposed to just saying, like sitting down, like, let me just buckle down for 10, 15 minutes, look at one or two problems, really understand them, and then move on. I think that also plays in a little bit where sometimes when we give ourselves 8 hours a day, it kind of gives us permission, or 5 hours of studying a day. It gives us permission for any individual minute to be of lower quality, right? Where, because you say like, oh, I'm
Yeah,
studying for 4 hours today,
that's
but
a good
then
point.
maybe maybe you get a good 20 minutes in where it's really focused, but then you kind of get a little bit distracted. You're like, oh, I've got another 3 hours left. It's fine. Let me look at my phone. Let me X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Instead, it'd be so much better, at least in my estimation, and from what I've seen, to say like, no, I could study for 4 hours today. Let me do 2 hours. Let me actually lock in for these 2 hours,
Yeah.
do high quality studying, and then I had another 2 hours free to go do X, Y, and Z, live my life, which honestly also has its like return on investment in terms of the LSAT.
Yeah.
Exercising, socializing. These are things that are good in combination with studying to getting a good score.
It's way better. Yeah, that's a way better. It just reminds me of all these people I knew in school who would be like, I'm going to the library to study all day. I need to study all day. And then you'd see them posted up in the library and they've got 10 tabs open, social media, and they're scrolling on their phone, and they just feel good that they're sitting there and they're not really getting any work done. Don't do the LSAT like that. Don't just like feel good that I mean, maybe this kind of goes against the advice I gave earlier, which is carve out the time. It doesn't matter what you do. I would say, let me amend that and say, carve out the time, great. And what you do matters. Again, 10 minutes of really focused work is better than 2 hours of half focused. This is not a test you can passively study for. It needs full brain power.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just about this way too. It's like if you give yourself less time to do high quality studying, then you also have high quality social media scrolling too, right? I mean, your social media
Yeah.
scrolling is not that high quality when you're kind of thinking about studying too. So
Right.
don't
Right.
you
You're
want the
not
best of both
enjoying
worlds?
the algorithm as much. Right. Right.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, really, kind of what the timeline and how much hours a day are you studying? It's really just a function of, it is usually better to give yourself more time. If you're in a decision right now of like, when am I going to take the test? Try to give yourself a longer horizon. It's okay if you have a short horizon. Great scores are still possible in a month, 2 months. Maybe you would increase your studying a little bit, but don't just try to go overboard. There's diminishing returns on every day. Uh, Maybe you do an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon, or you do 2 hour morning session, break, 2 hour evening session. So that's 4 total hours, but you have some time to break there, recharge, get back into it. Okay, cool. I guess that leads us nicely into you've been studying. How much can of a return can you expect on your studying? Which is this idea of like how much can you improve? Right? You take a PT, you get a 150. I don't know. Maybe you're only allowed to improve 10 points. I don't know. Is that true? Is that true?
Yeah, what do you I feel like I hear that all the time. Oh, my diagnostic is 140, is it possible for me to get a 160, or my diagnostic's 150, is it possible for me to get a 175? That is the wrong language to use. First of all, let me just answer everybody's question right now. Like, yes, it is possible for you to get any score. The question you should be asking is, how do I get there? Right? Because
Yeah.
you can get there, but maybe if your diagnostic is in the 120s or 130s, there are huge building blocks of foundations that you will have to learn before you get up to a high score, right? If your diagnostic is in the 160s, there are probably fewer building blocks you have to, yeah. But every score is possible for every person. It just might take different amounts of time and effort. Again, something a tutor once told me, Merdula, shout out to her, was that you're going to compromise on your score or on your timeline. So you might be dead set that, hey, I want a 175. Okay, you might not get it in 2 months, right? It might take you 6. It might take you longer. You might be dead set of, I need to take the August exam. Okay, you might compromise on your dream score. So anybody can get any score. There is no maximum threat. Think about it like this, right? Maybe you'd agree with this, Henry. Okay, if you say you're scoring in the 140s, I think you can pretty much guaranteed get into the 150s in a reasonable amount of time. Now, once you're in the 150s, your ceiling is suddenly higher, right? Because you're in the
Yeah.
150s, so you could get to the 160s. And once you're in the 160s, you can get to the 170. So it's your threshold. If there ever was a threshold or a ceiling, your ceiling increases with each improvement you make. So
Yes.
it makes no sense to think about an absolute ceiling. Anyway, I'm rambling, but this whole line of questioning offends me for some reason.
No,
Yeah.
I agree. I do find I think too, like probably an element of the sentiment is when people ask that question and then maybe they get a 10-point response or a 15-point response. It's like because the people, I don't, I'm going to about to generalize a little bit. Like if you find yourself asking the question, can I get this score in this timeline? It's possible, but you're already kind of starting from the wrong place in that you should be asking like, how can I get this score? Right? Not really, can I get this score in this amount of time? It's like maybe you can for sure. It's definitely possible, but it might not happen if what you're concerned about is like, how can I squeeze in, as you're saying, like this timeline and get this score in this time frame instead of just like, what is it going to take for me to get this score? I also think too, it's like to some extent too, it's like asking that question, and it's a complete normal thing. It kind of, I don't know, it almost like takes away from the people who get good scores on this test try to understand the test more, right? They don't try you try to like learn how to think and then also learn how to take the test. And then the score is a downstream effect of that. Whereas if you're starting backwards from the score, I think sometimes you start looking for tricks like, oh, this is an easy thing I can do. Let me not pick strong answers. That's quick. I can do that in 2 months, learn to not pick strong answers. Oh, my score's going up. But then you start running into roadblocks where sometimes you do have to pick strong answers, even in those question types where strong answers are quote unquote bad. So I don't know. It's totally natural to ask a score, but I would just say don't worry about that as much as you should be worried about thinking about how can I just improve on the test in general. Let me don't worry about the score. Like what will make me a better test taker, I would say. Yeah.
100%. I mean, I think for every person, I recommend this about your practice tests. You shouldn't live and die by your practice test scores. Your practice tests are really diagnostic tools. You should use the practice tests and your 7Sage analytics to see what kind of questions and skills are your weaknesses. And then it's your job to drill those weaknesses until you're better at them. And as you do that over and over again, identify weaknesses, drill them, improve on them, you will see your score go up. That's the only way to get your score up, right? Is to identify weaknesses, practice them, get better at them. And just keep doing that until you run out of weaknesses. Once you run out of weaknesses, you're at a 180. I mean, that's how you do it, right? there's really, I don't see any other, it's not easy studying for this test, but it's not complicated. I see no other way to really improve other than take a practice test, see what you're weak at, and learn those things that you're weak at. I mean, what else is there, Henry? You're right. It's like,
Yeah, I mean that it really is all it is. What was your you had a higher diagnostic, didn't you? Or what was your
yeah, it was.
diagnostic?
I mean, it was okay. I think it was in the low 150s, maybe 152.
Oh, that's kind of where I was. I think I was higher 140s for
And I
mine.
will say it wasn't even a diagnostic because I was one of those people, and I see this all the time, who was too afraid to take a diagnostic because I didn't want to brand myself with any number. It would have been too discouraging.
Yes.
So I studied first, and then I took a diagnostic. And in retrospect, it doesn't matter, right? If you're somebody
Damn,
sitting
you
there,
studied and you only got a 152. No, yeah, exactly. No, yeah.
Well, all is to say, like, your diagnostic score doesn't define you. No practice test score defines you. Arguably, an official test score doesn't really define you. You can get to a higher score. So if you're afraid to take a diagnostic test right now, if you're watching this, just take it, rip the Band-Aid. Don't even worry about what the score is. Just use it to identify now the areas you need to study, the things you need to study. That's how you should view a diagnostic score or any practice test. Forget about forget about that if you got a 140 or 150 or 130. I don't care. If you got a 130 and you're my tutoring client, I can get you to a higher score. I can get you to whatever score you want if you can put the work in. That's just how it works because it's the same for everybody.
Use it as fuel, right? Use it as fuel. I think the
yes.
diagnostic is a good. Generally, our diagnostic tells us that there's a lot of things we need to improve, and so if you have more, upward mobility or a larger, if you have a large amount of space to move upward, that's just more fuel for you to go. And in many ways, I don't want to say it's like it's better, but it's good to be at any diagnostic. Sometimes I think it's almost more encouraging for people when they start at a lower diagnostic because then every time, almost everything you do will lead to some amount of improvement, right? Where if you start at a higher diagnostic, it'd be really hard to like force yourself to maybe you do have to go back. Even if you have a higher diagnostic, you have a good intuition, but there might be some fundamentals that are not totally dialed in. But it would be hard to see that because it seems that you're doing so well on the diagnostic, or you did so well on your initial diagnostic, and you're like, oh, you study all this, maybe you improve 1 point, or you don't improve 1 point, you get the same score. You're like, oh, what did I even do here?
Right. Right.
Which I guess too.
I was going to say, there's plenty of people who probably can pull a 160-ish who aren't identifying conclusions properly.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, there's only a couple main conclusion questions per test, and the actual conclusions on other arguments are really easy to find. They just they spell it out for you, whereas the actual main conclusion, they just say therefore, thus, so. But the main conclusion questions, they try to deceive you, and so if you aren't used to understanding flow of support, which you'll understand perfectly if you go through the core curriculum on 7sage.com, but if they don't understand flow of support, it's gonna be really hard for them to bring themselves to go backwards. But yeah, I guess we can. And speaking of improvement, we'll go into our fourth myth here, which is not kind of myth. I don't know. I'm sure there's differing opinions on this. You can't improve much on RC. Maybe before we get how did you find the RC section when you took this test initially?
I thought I think I have mixed feelings about RC. I think I did up until the very end, where sometimes I felt like, oh yeah, it's just reading. I know how to read. I've read my whole life. And these questions are all about the main point, and I feel okay, right? And then there were other times where I felt so confused and like doubted my reading, my literacy, my reading abilities. RC was just a mixed bag for me. I think we talked about this on a previous episode. Like, even leading up to my final test day, like I would have sometimes a -0 section on RC. Sometimes I'd dip down to a -6, and it just was like it was a tough one. But so the myth, is it a myth? I guess that's the first question. Can you improve on RC? I mean, I'm inclined to say you can improve. I think the way you would improve is maybe a little unorthodox, is what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I think when it comes to how much you can reasonably improve RC, or the two components that go into it are one, your literacy, as you mentioned, how well you understand the passage, but then two, how well you can answer RC style questions. And for me, I think it's a lot easier to make improvements on the second part, right? How you answer questions, than it is to make improvements on the first part, which is your literacy. And by literacy, too, I guess we should mention, like, when we say literacy, we're not talking about can you read the words. That's not what literacy means. I mean, I guess that goes into literacy, but beyond that is not just can you read the words or do you know what the words mean? It's can you draw connections between sentences, right? When we talk about low literacy rates in, America, maybe we're not saying that people that can't read the words. We're saying that they might read a sentence, but they can't understand how that sentence works in a paragraph, or how the set of five sentences or that follow are related to the first sentence. And so I think it's a little harder to improve the literacy component. You can do it, but I don't think you'll make as many leaps and bounds in a given month as you would in, like, I don't know, in LR. Does that kind of make sense where you still can do it, and maybe you have some tips for that?
Well, one tip I give, and I've said this on the podcast before, is something that I think that can really help is try to read dense articles regularly, whether it's from The Economist or Foreign Affairs or Science Magazine or an academic journal. Getting used to reading dense material that is foreign to you is good, not because RC is necessarily testing your grasp of that material. It's really not. It's testing your grasp of argument structure and how the author introduces ideas and how the passage flows. So that's a mentality to get into. But also exposing yourself to that sort of difficult, dense content regularly will just make RC seem less scary. I think another tip within that is, if you read The Economist every day, you will be maybe hyper familiar with concepts and terms that come up a lot on the LSAT, like markets and social policy. And, these are things that they repeat a lot. Black holes come up a lot. Eukaryotic organisms. I don't know. You see the same kind of things. They throw in some biology stuff. They throw in some physics stuff. They throw in some economic stuff, some political theory, democratic principles. I just saw an RC passage that had liberal democratic principles, plastered all over it. It felt very familiar. And I think you don't have to be, super trained in all these disciplines. I certainly am not trained in any of these disciplines. It's just that, like, I think you can build a familiarity where you see a word or a term that's kind of scholarly or academic-y, and you're just not afraid of it because the passage isn't even about it anyway. It's just kind of there to destabilize you. I don't know if you, do you
No,
agree,
I
Henry?
entirely agree.
Yeah.
This is something that JY kind of, said to me, and I agree. There is an element, and it's underrated to some degree, how I think RC especially, there is some element of just general knowledge that this is testing you for, right? Where in theory, you could go in completely blind and do well. It's a lot harder to. And it really helps if you have some background knowledge about the world. And that's kind of what they're trying to test you for, right? Like, this is a graduate. You want to go to law school. This is a professional or profession that they are selecting for. And they want to make sure that people who are becoming lawyers have some sort of, general knowledge about the world. And I think a good example, right, is talk about, like, liberalism, right? They'll use the word liberalism, and in it, maybe you can infer that the liberalism that they're talking about, or, liberal principles, is not what we think of, like, in our colloquially when we talk about, oh, he's a liberal, right? Where we think, a big D Democrat, something like that, right? When we talk about liberalism on the test, they're saying, oh, right, are they talking about, individualism, individual rights, et cetera, et cetera, and if you're just
You're a
unfamiliar with that
political theory
definition.
student, Henry, I bet.
Well, I know
Or
I
maybe
was
you're
just
not.
Well, I listen to a lot of political podcasts, right? And and The Economist, right, and whatnot. And so, if you are familiar with the various definitions, you won't have to, like, really try to infer what they mean by reading between the lines. You'll just know that, oh, this is how they're using the word liberal, or this is how they're using the word democratic, or oh, they're talking about the French Revolution. I kind of know when that happened. Whatever. Could I rattle off every single event? No, but there's something about, like, Robespierre, right, and the guillotine, and so they're talking about, woman in the French Revolution. You're like, okay, you can kind of contextualize that based on what you know. It's not some foreign thing. So yeah, I do think that what you mentioned is a very underappreciated element. It's you read The Economist and these other articles not just to get better at reading, But because if you're interested in, if you devote some level of interest into them, you'll have enough background knowledge that'll help you contextualize these passages, because they are real passages too. They're not just invented out of nowhere. But yeah, I guess too, on the back half, not to keep on rambling, in terms of question answering, I think you can definitely improve that a lot more. Like for me personally, I never honestly found too much difficult understanding the passage. It's rare I hit a passage that I didn't really understand. I think an element of that was just like I had a lot of background knowledge from reading. I read a lot of Wikipedia as a kid. I think that really helped me. I don't know why. It's just,
Did you edit Wikipedia as a kid?
I didn't. Well, I mean, what was I to edit? I didn't know anything. Right? As a 10-year-old, I would just like blue link, keep on reading, and
That's fair.
I think that helped me. But so like I never really encountered a passage that I felt like I didn't understand. But that doesn't mean I really got the questions right. And so I did have to learn to get the questions right. And I think that is a little bit easier to improve over the course of time than overall literacy. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. No one should take this as a mark, I feel like, of like, oh, I got this score on RC, I can't improve. So you can improve, it just might take a little bit longer.
Yeah. I think identify what the problem is, right? Is it comprehension? Is it familiarity with, academic concepts? Or is it really the questions that are throwing you off? And I think you can certainly practice the questions. Once you learn what they're looking for, which, again, is not always content, but is more structural. And what's the author's opinion and the author's attitude? There's a lot of questions like that. In some sense, it's like an EQ test. Like, how does the author feel? Can you deduce how this author feels about a certain thing from how they write about it? Are they very passionate? Are they angry? Do they disagree? Do they agree? If you can track the author's opinion on various ideas and the voices they introduce as like their counter opinions and things like that, I think you'll be in great shape. And again, all the stuff like liberalism and black holes and, whatever else you find on there is just a backdrop for you to ascertain vibes and the vibes people have regarding those concepts. I don't know if that made sense at all, but
no, I think that makes a lot of sense. I guess we can wrap from here. I don't know. Anything to say besides like, subscribe, comment?
Like, subscribe, comment. Hey, it's gonna be okay. You're gonna get through this test. You're gonna do great. And if you have questions for us, comment them. You can write them in the comments. You can send us that. You can send us an email. And if we choose your question to answer on the podcast, you will get a free month of live. So
free month.
Stay engaged with us. We love hearing your questions. We love busting your myths, and we're helping you out every single week. So keep coming back.
Keep coming back. Keep studying, and thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Peace. Yeah.